أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله صلوات الله عليه. حي على الصلاة، حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله، لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أولاد إبرار وجل برحمتك. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى والذي خلق السماوات والأرض بغير عمد ترونها تبارك وتعالى هو الأول والآخر وإليه المنتهى نحمده ونستعينه ونثني عليه ونؤمن به ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف بريته ومبلغ رسالاته العبد المؤيد الرسول المسدد المحمود الأحمد أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. My brothers and sisters, I remind all of us to try to be as obedient to Allah as we can and to fulfill the expectation of taqwa in this life. Inshallah, I want to dedicate this Salat al-Jum'ah to Imam Ali alayhi salam, whose name adorns this month. Just share with you one of his small sayings in our first khutbah, and then in the second khutbah we have something else to talk about in regards to him as well, inshallah. So what I've selected is, this is a saying number 228 of Nahj al-Balagha. Just a reminder for all of us, where he says, وقال عليه السلام من أصبح على الدنيا حزينا فقد أصبح لقضاء الله ساخطا. There's 4 or 5 things that the Imam he mentions here. It's just a reminder for all of us, really. Given the times that we are in and all the ups and downs and the economies and the inflations and all of that stuff. Yes, sometimes we get upset of what's going on, the dhulm that happens, all of that. But if you zoom out a little and put things a little bit more into perspective, you'll find that no, there's something actually going on that Allah wants. Now, here it says that Imam Ali, he said that whoever gets up in the morning while they are hazeen over the dunya, huzn means grief, and they're grievous over dunya, and probably they've lost something and so on. Imam Ali says that translates to you actually being angry with the qada and decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. look, at the end of the day, are we believers or are we not believers? Do we read what the Quran tells us or do we not read? Do we believe in what the Quran tells us or not? The Quran is telling us, yes, that there's someone at the top and there is a grander scheme of things. Right? The Quran is telling us this. And so if we actually believed in this, and I speak of myself, all of you, mashallah, are set. But if I look at myself, I see that I'm really grievous over certain things in this dunya. It's okay to be upset. We have emotions and all of that. That's not what it's saying here. Sometimes you are so upset about losing something in this dunya as if you've lost some of your akhirah for it. No. Let's look at things the way they're supposed to be looked at. But if someone is like that, then that translates to me being angry with what Allah has decreed. We're not atheists here. We're not secular people here. We actually believe in what the Quran tells us, or we're supposed to. And then the Quran is telling us that He's at the top. That everything is running by Him. You know? The people during the Prophet's time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were made fun of sometimes. Or they were called out and looked down upon because you're going and fighting in the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the way of Islam. You lose your lives, you're losers, you're losing something. Their answer was, قُلْ هَلْ تَرَبَّصُونَ بِنَا إِلَّا إِحْدَى الْحُسْنَيَيْنِ. Are you waiting for something, one of the two good things to happen to us? Meaning what? Meaning either we lose our life in the way of Allah, then that is shahada, that's a great blessing. And if we are victorious on the battlefield, then that's also a blessing. So like you are the losers. Because if you look at it with the right lens, it's all win-win for us. Now, same thing with our everyday lives. In the end, we need to zoom out a little bit and look at the greater picture, or else us complaining too much is going to equal sakhat of Allah, being sakhat, or having sakhat over Allah, and being angry with Allah's decree. That's what it's going to be. Yeah, sometimes you lose a loved one. Sometimes you lose something that you've done so much for. You know you'll never get back. It's okay to be upset about that. That's not what this is talking about, once again. But then once everything is all is said and done, things go back to normal. No, I have this in my heart that yeah, I am very grievous. Okay? Not from an emotional aspect, from another aspect that Imam is talking about here. That's what it translates to, because you are angry with what Allah has decreed. Now, I always say this, by the way. If, brothers and sisters, we ever have this feeling in us that, look, I'm just not ready for that. I'm sorry. I am just not ready for this higher level of tawheed and to believe that everything comes from Allah. And if it does, I am upset with that. Well, it's good to fall back on certain basics then. If we feel we're not ready for Allah's decree, it's going to happen anyway, by the way. He's not going to ask you before, like, are you ready for this? No, that'll defeat the purpose. But if we ever feel we're not ready for it, we have to tell ourselves, well, if there's a God at the top, He has decided to put me in a world of cause and effect, and this is a world in which stuff happens. And they usually use another word for stuff here, but I'm just keeping it kosher. Stuff happens, okay? We have to understand that. I don't even want to believe that He's the one who runs the show. Fine, that's fine. You don't want to believe in that practically, that's fine. Understand this much at least, and you should be calm. We should be calm after we think of it like this at least. That look, I'm not ready to have a very tawheedi perspective on life. But I can understand that we live in a world in cause and effect, and this person here hurt me in this way or that way because they follow their own desires, whatever they want. End of story, done. And Allah put me in this life because that's what happens in this life. Allah didn't decree it. Practically, that's what you can tell yourself. Allah didn't even decree it. Fine, no problem. Yeah. Some of us aren't ready for that, or aren't ready for this. But Imam Ali is letting us know that if you are on this path, at least in theory, have this in mind. Okay? Put it in the back of your mind that this is what that translates to. Number one. Number two, وَمَنْ أَصْبَحَ يَشْكُو مُصِيبَةً نَزَلَتْ بِهِ فَقَدْ أَصْبَحَ يَشْكُو رَبَّهُ. That if a person, it reaches a point where they are complaining about a musibah. Complaining. Okay? Once again, if a tragedy befalls us in those moments where it's not easy and all of that, people say things, do things that might not be irrational and might not read with their own beliefs. That is something that is beyond their control. That's something they probably are not paying attention to. Their emotions have taken over. Just all in all, 45 years have passed and I've seen these people. Yeah? True story here. Still complaining about something that happened 45 years ago. What? That passed. Like, you're going to be talked about later as well, because you're going to be passing soon too. Still remembering that as if, it was yesterday. That's fine, but understand that if you complain a little too much, what are you actually doing? Asbaha yashku rabbahu. You're actually complaining about your Lord himself. Okay? It's just Imam Ali wants to give us tawheedi perspective. Okay? And we have another hadith that I love and I'm always mentioning. That the hadith says that when someone does sabbud dahr, they just say bad things and they curse out the times. When life stinks and you're just talking bad about your life and just complaining about life all the time, he says, what they're doing is actually cursing me out. Astaghfirullah. Ana biyadi ad-dahr. I'm the one who changes day and night. I'm the one who's behind all these times that you're cursing out. So indirectly, what are you doing? You're speaking ill of me. It's all part of a plan. It was supposed to be like this. That's why you're here, or else I would take you straight to heaven. And by the way, it's not possible to take someone straight to heaven without coming through this dunya. He wants us in heaven, and that's why he brings us here. And here equals all this mess that we're in. We have to understand that. These are reminders. وَمَنْ أَتَى غَنِيًّا فَتَوَضَعَ لِغِنَاهُ ذَهَبَ ثُلُثَ دِينِهِ. Once again, tawheed. Allah, Allah, Allah. It says, if you go to a person and humble yourself in front of them and are humble in front of them, belittle yourself in front of them because of their wealth, then 2/3 of your faith is gone. Why? Because 2/3 of importance probably you're giving to that person over Allah. You're supposed to give all of the importance in your heart to Allah. Now, once again, our relationships with people, how we socialize with them is part of the package, no doubt. The Prophet and the Imams themselves have taught us that. But what's happening up here is going to be important. And so if your understanding was that, yeah, Allah is going to do things through different individuals for me. If that was your understanding, you wouldn't humble yourself in front of this Lord of yours now. That's a human being. You wouldn't do that. The fact that you humble yourself so much and belittle yourself so much, and we have hadiths, like if you say salam to someone differently than others because you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about, right? Because they got something others don't, you got a big problem here, okay? You want to be humble with everybody. The Imams would sit with their slaves or servants or others, and it doesn't matter to them. That's not what this hadith, once again, is speaking about. You see, Imam Ali keeps reminding us of Tawheed. I want to talk about this book that he says these in, which is Nahj al-Balagha, but in our second khutbah. وَمَنْ قَرَأَ الْقُرْآنَ فَمَاتَ فَدَخَلَ النَّارِ فَهُوَ مِمَّنْ كَانَ يَتَّخِذُ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ هُزُوًا. All right. He doesn't hold back. Imam Ali doesn't hold back. We all know. In Nahj al-Balagha, he doesn't hold back. He's not going to waste time. He's not going to mess around. He says, if you were a reciter of the Quran, Shaykh Amin, you used to be Mulana in center. You used to recite Quran so nicely. The Arabs would say, oh, are you Arab? I said, no, I'm Iranian. It's just that I'm so good at reciting, you know what I'm saying? So, what happens here? This person who would recite Quran, if they leave this dunya, and then they enter the hellfire though, then they are an example of one of the ones that the Quran speaks about that says, كَانُوا يَتَّخِذُونَ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ هُزُوًا. They were mocking the verses of Allah. They were taking it as a joke. This is not a storybook to read and tell the stories to our kids about. Yeah? It's not what this book is all about. This book is supposed to be life-changing and akhirah changing. And the only way it will be akhirah changing is if I act upon what I recite. How can I act upon what I recite? When you understand what you're reciting and you reflect over it. So hey, let's read some translation every now and then too. Let us not keep the Quran to two things in our life. Number one, because we're starting a majlis, we'll start with a few verses of Quran. Or if we're having a wedding, then we make sure that God's barakah and blessing is with us, so we're going to start with Quran. And that's about really it. Imam Ali keeps it real. He says, you were reciting Quran, but let me just let you know, the people of the dunya, they would look at you, they say, oh, this person, look, they are a reflection of Quran, and what have you. But if you're not going to go to Jannah through this Quran, no. It doesn't matter if you were the best reciter or whatever. What are you actually? An example of those who were taking the signs and verses of God as A joke. Is this a joke? This world is a joke? This life is a joke? Hey, by the way, if he says this about the Quran, some of us are good. We're like, hey, I don't even recite Quran, so we're good. Well, I know that you recite Nohas. Same thing will apply to you there too. You recite Marsiya and Suz and all that, it applies to you. Anything of religion, okay, if it's not going to contribute to you getting into Jannah because you're acting upon what you recite, then I would say to an extent this applies to us as well. Okay? I bring myself into this equation. Us. All of us have to, hand in hand, in a community like this one, help ourselves towards the goal of acting upon what we recite. Alright. وَمَنْ لَهِجَ قَلْبُهُ بِحُبِّ الدُّنْيَا الْتَاطَ قَلْبُهُ مِنْهَا بِثَلَاثٍ. And a person whose heart is just always thinking of love of this dunya, then their heart will be, what does it say here? Let me read the transition. If a man's heart gets attached to the world, then it catches three things. Three things will come as a result of that. Number one, هَمٌّ لَا يَغُبُّهُ or يُغِبُّهُ. A worry that never leaves them. I don't need to explain that. If you're attached to something a lot, you will have a worry for it. Some of our great scholars, they were attached to things that had to do with the akhirah. And so what are they always worried about? God forbid I lose akhirah. God forbid I lose akhirah. God forbid I do something, I lose this. To the point, I still remember this story. Some of you might have heard it from me. Sheikh Abbas Qumi, the author of the book of, who is he? Mafatih al-Janan. Yeah, the book that I like more than the Quran sometimes, unfortunately. Huh? That one, that book. He says, I was leading Salaat al-Jama'ah. Where? Masjid Gohar Shad. Where's that? Mashhad. If you look at Mashhad's pictures, you see the golden dome. And then you see a bigger dome that's, it's like a green, bluish, turquoise color. Correct? That's Masjid Gohar Shad, it's called. He says, I was leading Salat there. It's a big masjid. And as I was leading Salat in Maghrib, like when the Imam is in ruku and people are trying to connect to the Salat, they just arrived because they were late. They're arriving, Ya Allah, wait for me. Don't get out of ruku, so I get a discounted rak'ah, So, in Allah ma'as sabirin, they say that too. They say, if you get up from your ruku, that means you don't have sabr. Wait for me. Don't get out of the ruku. You know what those of you who know, you know what I'm talking about. Alright, anyway. He says, I heard some people saying this. Ya Allah, inna Allah ma'as sabirin. Meaning what? Don't get out of ruku, Shaykh. We want to connect to your salat. Guess what? He says, at that moment, I realized that this sound is coming from way back. Meaning what? Meaning I have a big jama'ah behind me. Doesn't that feel good? That feels good, doesn't it? He says, after Salat al-Maghrib, I got up and left. I didn't lead Salat al-Isha. I did not lead Salat al-Isha. And you can guess why. Because that moment, he felt like, wait a minute, if I'm getting happy over this, God forbid my intention isn't the purest of intentions. Now, if it was me, what would I do in ruku'? Take out my phone, take a selfie. Make sure the crowd's behind me. You know what I'm saying? These are the times that we're in. We're trying to change those standards, bring things back to normal again. Sometimes you talk to your kids, right? Your kids of the community, you feel like, wow, I don't even blame them anymore. The standards are just totally different. Sometimes, there was a time you would say, this is wrong, they'd understand, you'd remind them, and you're good. Nowadays, it's not even about that. It's just been a paradigm shift. The standards have changed, What's wrong with that? What's wrong with when you have hundreds of people? There's more sawab in it. Of course there is. I'm not going to leave. If I have that many people in Maghrib, I'll probably lead Isha too. But with him, just trying to make a point here, the moment they feel like their akhirah is compromised, they have this worry to the point that they take some action like this. All right? So now here, it says, if you're attached to the dunya like this, same thing's going to happen. You will be so worried over it all the time. The worry that you're supposed to have for akhirah, what will happen? It'll shift over to the dunya. That's number one. Number two, a person who's attached to it, what happens to them? Hirsan لا يتركه. A greed that doesn't abandon them. Enough, it will never be enough for that individual. And number 3, أمل لا يدركه, which is the most scary of them all. You're like, yo, I want to make high 5 figures a year. Alhamdulillah, the guy hits that that goal that they have. I want to do 6 now, six figures. You're like, all right, fine, good. No, I need 7 figures in my bank account. As these numbers go up, Israel, angel of death, comes and knocks on their door. The time to go. You're like, no, I'm trying to hit 9 figures. He's like, yeah, you'll watch in the barzakh as your family, hits that figure. It's not gonna help you. In other words, it is good to aim high, brothers and sisters, as long as we keep things a little realistic, yes, and not set certain goals. I know in this day and age, that's what they tell us, like set the highest goals, which is fine. But make sure that the akhirah is part of that, and that you don't just give all of the akhirah for whatever you can gain in the dunya, forgetting about that more long-term investment, inshallah. So this is one little saying from Imam Ali alayhi salam in regards to reminding us of tawheed and keeping Allah in the equation. Inshallah, we are able to implement that in our lives. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Allahu as-samad lam yalid wa lam yulad. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. صلى الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. أثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. لا إله إلا هو له الأسماء الحسنى والمثل الأعلى تبارك وتعالى. ثم أصلي وأسلم على نجيبه وحبيبه وحافظ سره الذي سمي في السماء بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل وسلم على علي أمير المؤمنين وعلى فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين وعلى سبطي نبي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. اللهم صل وسلم على أئمة الهدى علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف القائم المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات. عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. Once again, I remind ourselves, including myself, that we are here for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to secure the proper beliefs and the actions that are to ensue as a result of those beliefs. In other words, to uphold the taqwa of Allah throughout our lives, inshaAllah. As I said, I am dedicating this Jum'ah to Imam Ali today. So just to start things off, in our previous khutbah, we went through one of his sayings, saying number 228 of Nahj al-Balagha. But now I want to, speak a little, zoom out of, Nahj al-Balagha and just speak all in general about one thing. And that is, when we hear the name of Imam Ali alayhi salam, what is the first thing that comes to our mind? Something to think about. But usually that which is to come to someone's mind, that which a person represents, is usually what people will be using to show others and to symbolize that person in front of others. And so usually, what is it that our, especially younger ones, do to show that they are a follower of Imam Ali? What kind of necklace do they wear? The Dhul Faqar, right? And so that is the first thing that comes to a lot of people's minds, or at least we use the Dhul Faqar, the sword of Imam Ali, to represent him. So I think you already know where I'm going with this. Are we actually honoring Imam Ali by doing this? Of course we are. He speaks about it himself in Nahj al-Balagha. Okay? He speaks about this in Nahj al-Balagha. So it's something, and I'll give you a little example of that. So it's not that we're not honoring him when we look at the Dhul Faqar, but I just wish that on those necklaces, another thing was hanging as well. No one says take the Dhul Faqar down. I wish something else was hanging on there as well. So let's get to that. But first, this idea of, no, he's not all about his valor and courage. Well, he himself brings this up to a letter to his enemy of his time, Muawiyah. He says, because Muawiyah, he's living far away. When you're far away, when you're a keyboard warrior, you get away with a lot. You know what I'm saying? You get away with it. No one can do anything about it. Hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers away, Muawiyah writes a letter to Imam Ali. And apparently in that letter, he's like, hey, you want to start something? Imam Ali responds in this manner. I think this is letter number 10 of Nahj al-Balagha. He says, you have called me to war. Better to leave the people on one side, come out to me and spare both the parties from fighting. So you want to start something, don't bring your whole entourage, your whole army with you. Let's spare the people's lives. Just me and you go out and have a little dance together, so to speak, So that it may be known who of us has a rusted heart. But look where he takes it to. Does he take the whole thing, the battle aspect, to the sword, or does he take it to the heart? And covered eyes. Who has covered eyes? I am Abu al-Hasan who killed your grandfather, your brother, and your uncle. I destroyed them. When did he do that? In the Battle of Badr, correct? The same sword is with me and I meet my adversary. So here he mentions the sword, you see? So Imam Ali, it does make a deal about his sword, only when, of course, the need is there. The same sword is with me and I meet my adversary, which is Muawiyah, with the same heart. He goes back to the heart. I have not altered the religion nor put up any new prophet. I am surely treading on the very path which you had willingly forsaken in the beginning and then adopted by force later, Muawiyah. So you were forced to become Muslim. I had it from the beginning. In this excerpt, the Imam brings up the sword, but he brings up the religion. He brings up the heart, the iman, things like that he brings up as well. And so we need to ask ourselves, if Imam Ali has this courage and valor and all of that, what is it rooted in? Because there are a lot of other courageous people out there. What's the difference here? No one's saying that he's not blessed with physical strength and all of that. But look, when we look, what do we see? We see an endless iman and we see endless wisdom and knowledge in Imam Ali. I want to say this, inshallah you agree with me, that a normal person cannot be like this. This is craziness, I'm sorry. In the books of the secular world, this is craziness. For you to do what you do in the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud when everyone else is fleeing, and so on. This is craziness. Unless there's something greater in your heart. For you to sleep in the place of the Prophet, for example, when there's 40 people about to chop you up to pieces. Where Ibn Taymiyyah, you know what he says? He says, no big deal. Then Ali ibn Abi Talib slept in the place of the Prophet because the Prophet had told him you'll survive. And you know what the answer to that some people give is? They say, okay, assuming that was correct, what you're saying that he knew because the Prophet had told him, that you're going to survive this. Because they say the Prophet told him, in a few days when you meet me, like do this and that. We need to do this and that. So he knew he's going to survive that. The thing is, this actually is a praise of Imam Ali. You're not taking away anything from him. You're actually adding to the greatness of Imam Ali. Let's just assume the Prophet told him, you will survive this episode. This shows how much conviction he had in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that when the Prophet tells him, he says, I'll accept. And he still does that. Versus others who didn't have that conviction. So, this actually, the courage, the valor, the sword, all of that, some will say this craziness unless you have an iman like that. So what is that sword rooted in? Look, brothers and sisters, you and I, no matter how much we try, we're not going to be like him physically, right? We're not going to be like him from an iman and faith perspective. So let us choose, what do we want to get closest to? I still remember when I was a kid growing up in one of these other centers that we were in, growing up, there was this one brother, he was always had this wooden katana, it's the sword Leonardo has in Ninja Turtles. And so he's always practicing. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm getting ready for the imam. Bro, there's other things you can get ready that are more important. It's not just the physical aspect of things. But that's what he was doing. He felt like I have to do that kind of thing. So let's see, is that what the Ahlul Bayt have asked us for? If I can secure everything, fine. But look, the most important thing is to figure out that Dhul Faqar of Imam Ali, what is it rooted in? It is rooted in the strongest iman, the strongest wisdom and knowledge. And so he himself in other parts of Nahj al-Balagha is saying this. He's reminding us. He says, for example, in the famous, I think Sermon 3, he says, يَنْحَدِرُ عَنِّ السَّيْلِ وَلَا يَرْقَى إِلَيَّ الطَّيْرِ. You want to know about me? He doesn't talk about his sword anymore. What does he talk about? He talks about his knowledge. He says, from me flows the sail. Sail doesn't mean some little puny stream. Sail means flood, okay? What's he talking about? Is water coming from Imam Ali, like from his existence? No. This is metaphor. For what? For knowledge and wisdom. He says, they put me aside while يَنْحَدَرُ عَنِّ السَّيْلِ. From me flows knowledge and wisdom. وَلَا يَرْقَى إِلَيَّ الطَّيْرِ. And the birds can't reach me when it comes to loftiness. I am so up there that in another part, you've heard this one as well. He says, "Saluni qabla an tafqiduni." Ask me before you lose me. Why? Because I'm so up there. What do you mean? فَلَا أَنَا بِطُرُقِ السَّمَاءِ أَعْلَمُ مِنِّي بِطُرُقِ الْأَرْضِ. Wow. For verily, I am more aware of what's happening in the heavens versus this little earth of yours that you're so pressed over. Wow. So if he says the birds can't reach me, what's he talking about here? Knowledge again. He's talking about he's wayfaring the heavens, and here we are, worried about whether lobster is halal or not. You know. I'm not saying that's an issue. No, inshallah, one day if there is a marja who says this a lot, I'm not saying don't go for it. But anyway, let's not get sidetracked here. So I would say, let's see what it's deeply rooted in, to the point that this physical strength of Imam Ali becomes but a mere means to a higher goal. Actually, it's not even what he thinks that he's all about. You understand? And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, I want to bring in that famous saying of his where he says, "Ana madinatul ilm wa aliyun babuha." I am the city of what? Of a gym where you go and physically get fit. Is that what it is? What am I the city of? I am the city of knowledge. You see what I did there? I'm the city of knowledge, the Prophet ﷺ says. In other words, that's the destination. The knowledge is the destination. Huh? And then, of course, the gate for that, you get that through who? Through Imam Ali alayhi salam. So, it's not even, the knowledge of Imam Ali and then the physical strength of Imam Ali, these are up there together. No, one is actually in line with the other and pushes something else, which is the agenda, which is the knowledge. And of course, the knowledge is the prerequisite for the action. And so we're back at square one of taqwa again. That is the ultimate goal. I wish next to the Dhul Faqar of Ali ibn Abi Talib, we had something that represents wisdom, knowledge, iman. I wish we had that. And if we don't, when we look at that, we see that this is something that's rooted in that at least. No one's saying that that's a problem. I hope we're clear on this. Yeah? I hope we're clear on this. The Dhul Faqar represents a lot. And I would say our Shia brethren who do rock that thing, they are doing it because that shows the level that Imam Ali was at. And he, as a result, was able to accomplish what he did on the battlefield. But let us not ever forget that that is the goal. And so now, when that is what we're after, why not learn more? I would even say we haven't even learned about the sword aspect of Imam Ali properly. All we know about is in Uhud, some people ran away, Imam Ali didn't run away. All we know is that Khaybar, this happened and that happened. That's where it's going to be. Have we even learned that part? The history of just all in all, Imam Ali, all in all. Battle of Hunayn. What's so special about Battle of Hunayn and Imam Ali, for example? Do we even know about the Battle of Hunayn, for example? Yeah, all the 25 years, if that sword was unleashed on others in the battlefield, the 25 years that this sword was sheathed, what was going on. So even the sword part, we haven't learned properly, right? And so what we have to do, inshallah, is learn about that. I think Nahj al-Balagha is the first point for that, but it's not easy. We have to learn about it, see what has been discussed of this beautiful book. Now, I'm not even going to say what Ayatollah Jawadi says. Well, I will say it, but Ayatollah Jawadi, he even was speaking to a group of Hawza students and scholars. He's like, listen, even Nahj al-Balagha is not enough, because Nahj al-Balagha, what was the criterion of selection in Nahj al-Balagha? The eloquence. That's why Sayyid al-Radi, he will cut up certain khutbas of Imam Ali, just take a piece of it. Ayatollah Jawadi says, no, you want to know Ali? You have to study Tamamu Nahj al-Balagha, which is another book that has brought all of the sermons that Sayyid al-Radi has selected from. Okay? Selected from. But hey, who are we kidding? We're not ever going to make it there, probably. So let us at least begin with some parts of Nahj al-Balagha, one of which I shared in our first khutbah, and then we will see that Imam Ali is represented by so much more than what we see him as. Inshallah, we can take a drop from the sea of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. I've been asked the brothers and sisters to do dua for one of our sisters who is going to be, it's not a bad news, it's good news actually. It's her last Islamic birthday before she gets married and maybe leaves our community. And so inshallah, you keep her in your du'as. I'm not going to mention names, okay? But yeah, inshallah, keep her in your du'as that they have a successful and happy marriage, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ صدق الله العلي العظيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله وأنه حجة الله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين واستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه اللهم بحق فاطمة وأبيها وبالها وبنيها وسر المستودع فيها يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك Inshallah, recite Ayat Karima for all those who are ill and ailing throughout the world, especially in our community. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أَمَّن يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ 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 يا الله شافي يا العافية صلى اللهم على محمد وعلى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد. A few announcements regarding upcoming programs and events. Inshallah, the Sisters Milad and Baluk ceremony, arranged by the Scouts Troop 1499, is scheduled for tomorrow at 4 p.m. CFK is also holding a webinar this Sunday at 4 p.m. on the topic An Impending Genocide of Muslims in India, with guest speaker Dr. Sana Qutbuddin. Just a reminder, this will be an online event over Zoom, inshallah. Inshallah, next week, on Saturday, February 26th, we will be commemorating the martyrdom of Imam Kazim alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Here at CFK, Sayyid Hussain Razavi will be speaking at the program, and the program is scheduled to begin with Salatul Maghribain. On Sunday, inshallah, February 27th, we will be celebrating the Ba'asat Rasul Khuda sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Here at CFK. And Sheikh Mehdi Rastani will be speaking at the program, and the program is scheduled to begin with Salatul Maghribain as well. As always, event details are posted on our WhatsApp group, Email and webpage cfkdfw.org. We request the community to continue observing safety protocols. Please wear masks and practice social distancing in all in-person events. Jazakallah to all our sustaining members, donors, volunteers, and program sponsors for their contributions. If you are not a member, please consider becoming one by contacting our membership director, Brother Asif Patel. For opportunities, his contact info is here, has been posted here on the walls here. For opportunities to donate, sponsor programs, or help behind the scenes, please speak to myself or any of the volunteers. Let us now please recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of today's Niyaz sponsors, Marhuma Farida Mitani, daughter of Ramzan Ali, wife of Brother Ahmed Mitani, all our marhumin and the marhumin of the Ummah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله وأنه حجة الله صلوات الله عليه حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كذلك الله ربي الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم لا إله إلا الله العلي العظيم سبحان الله رب السماوات السبع ورب الأراضين السبع وما فيهن وما بينهن ورب العرش العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد الله أكبر سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سبحان الله سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر أستغفر الله الله أكبر سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
إن الله وملائكته يصلون